You doing?
Doing great.
Good, good, good. Okay, one more minute. We'll get started here. All right, we're at 2 o'clock. So hope everybody's having a great afternoon. Everybody hear me okay? Can see my screen here. Big Small Business Phoenix Rising. So thank you for coming. And just a little housekeeping up front. I'm basically going to keep everybody muted. We actually have 59 people that have registered for this meeting. We'll see. We'll surely have some people show up a little bit later. But with that being said, if you have a question, great. If you would, please type it in the chat box. If you don't know where that's at, that's part of the Zoom bar. If you click on there, there's a little option there to be able to chat. So thank you for coming today. Our crusade with Small Business Phoenix Rising is to provide small business owners the tools, insights, and mentoring needed to get through this tough time and back to being successful and profitable. Okay, so we offer, and what we're doing with small businesses is offering some tools, some insights, and mentoring. So today I've got Adam Cook, and then myself. I'm Andy King. Adam first is going to cover a lot of what's going on with the EIDL, the PPP, and a lot of good information and updates on the financing and what's happening there. Then when he's finished, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about some tools that we can use, ways that we can kind of stay in touch with our customers during this time, and also when we get beyond this time, to be able to stay in contact with them on a consistent basis. And then if we have any questions you can ask throughout, just type them in the box, and then we'll get to those questions, and then we'll just quickly finish up and then talk about the next meeting. So with that being said, Adam Cook owns Cook Insurance. It's a commercial insurance agency. And Adam's just done a great job with going out there and finding out lots of good information about these loans products. It seems like about every minute of the day, something is changing with SBA, and it's really hard to keep track of. And he's done a real nice job of going out there and finding out not only for himself, but also for his customers. He's had several customers that have reached out to him in complete despair, not knowing what to do. And he's done a real good job of giving them options. So without any further ado, Adam, you're up, and please tell us what's new.
So there we go. Everybody's unmuted now. Look at that, Andy.
Yeah, I know. I'm losing the screen here. Here we go. So hang on a second here, Adam. All right.
Technology.
Yep.
Quit muting me back. All right. Hey, everybody. I appreciate you guys kind of tuning in here. As Andy said, my name is Adam Cook, owner of the Cook Insurance Group. Look, guys, we've been here 16 whole years. And in that time, all our main focus is on business insurance. This is not a commercial about me, but just kind of let you know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Long story short, maybe it is a little self-serving. I don't know. I want to make sure my customers get to stay in business, that they're not going to be running away, that they're not going to have to close, that they get that they understand the resources that are available to them through the current economic environment. And this is an environment through no fault of their own. I just see right here, some of the people that are with us right now. I see restaurant owners and cleaning companies, and I see a lot of different people out there that are business owners in our community that they've taken a hit on revenue. They've taken a hit on how they can normally operate. And I hate to say it, there are going to be people that just aren't going to recover from it. They're going to go out of business. And it's a horrible, horrible thing that we're going to have to realize. But if I can keep a couple of people from not having to do that, you know, it's kind of cliche, right? If I can keep just one person, if I can save just one person with this knowledge, you know, I kind of mean it. I want to make sure that people are taken care of. Andy mentioned it that I've got, you know, I've had some customers call me and they're rather emotional. I had one client call me up last week and she is just her. She was just an independent contractor. All she did was clean. She didn't have any employees. So when I got on the phone with her, she was pretty much in tears already because she didn't see any hope. She had absolutely zero hope. Because everything you see on these programs like the CARES Act and things like that, loans through SBA, the key word everybody keeps hearing is paycheck or employee payroll or something along those lines. And so there's a really big misconception that the CARES Act and some of these other governmental programs are specific to those businesses that have employees. Now, yes, it's big. It can be a big help and a big boon for those businesses that do have employees. But there's absolute assistance for those independent contractors as well. And we'll go into that just a little bit. So CARES Act was brought up and was finally voted on and approved a little over 2 weeks ago. In that time, a lot has happened. There's been some clarity that's come out with what's in that act. And probably the most popular thing that you've seen out there, and I don't necessarily have it listed in here, but is going to be the stimulus payments, as they're calling it. That's the $1,200 per person per taxpayer. That's the you get up to $500, or you get $500 per kid that you have in the house. Key point on that: if you're getting that stimulus, a kid is defined as somebody 16 and under. So if you have a 17-year-old in your house like I do, well, she doesn't count for anything. Well, she's in the other room, so hopefully didn't hear that too much. But those checks are coming out right now. If you have filed your 2019, fantastic. If you haven't filed your 2019 taxes, that's going to be based off your 2018. If you've gotten refunds, then you may have had those direct deposited. If they're direct deposited, that's exactly how you're going to get your stimulus check. It's going to come straight from those from those bank records. It's going to be directly deposited into your account. If you have never done that, like myself, we get paper checks, or we haven't gotten a refund forever. We tend to have to pay, right? Most of us business owners. Phil, you're with me. Then you're probably going to have to wait quite a bit longer for those checks. Now, granted, when you're a business owner, a lot of times $1,200, $2,400, whatever it is that you may qualify for, it's not a whole heck of a lot of money, to be honest with you. It's probably not going to change the direction of our business and keep us from going out of business. So there's a couple of programs that have been created. One of them, and I don't know that I'm telling most of you anything that you don't already know, but you may not know how it works or why it works or what the differences are. So the first one is going to be that Paycheck Protection Program. It's the PPP. I think this is one of the neatest things that's ever come out from the government. And I don't know that that's saying a whole lot, but you know, this is not to be political by any means, but they are trying to take as much responsibility as they can for the environment that they've given us as a reaction to this event that we're going through the I can't even talk about it, the coronavirus. So with the coronavirus, you know, it's created a really unique situation to where, you know, us as business owners, we're having to shut down and reorganize through no fault of our own again. So, all right, so Paycheck Protection Program, better known as the PPP. And this was a program that was designed to give business owners quick access to cash to help them retain employees. And that was the sole purpose, is to help them retain and help them cover payroll during this time that you're not actually bringing in the revenue you used to. And for some businesses, making absolutely zero revenue. So it's to keep people off the unemployment line as best we can. And so how it works is you actually go to your local SBA bank when you're so you're not going directly to the SBA. you're not going to their website, and that's going to be a different loan we'll talk about here in a second. But when we're talking about the PPP, you're going to go directly to your local bank. So that could be, for example, and this is not to play favorites. You got banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Amegy Bank here locally, and we'll talk about a little bit about what's going on with some of these other guys too. So, so you actually apply directly through them. They go through their process to confirm that you're who you are, you're doing what you're doing, and then they will send that to the SBA for approval. And theoretically, within 10 days of actually applying for it, you're supposed to have the money in your bank. Now, it's the actual amount that you can get initially is going to be 2.5 times that of your payroll. It's going to be of your actual average monthly payroll. And I apologize, my phone's ringing. Hopefully it's not coming through. It's going to be 2.5 times that of your monthly payroll, based off of, and it depends on the bank that you're talking to. It's either 2019, so your average for 2019, or a rolling 12 months from the time that you actually apply. So it could be April 2019 to April 2020. There's no real clear guidance on it. So it seems some banks want to do it one way, some banks want to do it another way. The definition of payroll is your W-2 payroll. It is your tips, your bonuses, things like that you can get. It does not include 1099 contractors that you may pay. And the reason for that is, and they're extremely clear on that point. It does not include your subcontractors or your independent contractors. They actually have the ability to apply for a loan similar to this all on their own outside of this. So this is designed for your W-2 payrolls. One other question, and there's still no clear guidance on it. I see some banks allowing it, some banks not. Is going to be whether or not owner draws. So you got a lot of S corps out there that where the owner may take a payroll as well as taking an owner draw. It does not actually, from what I can tell, it's not actually going to cover your owner draw. But some banks are allowing you to claim it. The beauty of this Paycheck protection program is that it can be waived. You don't have to pay a dime of it back if it's used correctly. And so if you end up getting more money than you can use for qualified expenses, then you end up having some money left over that you may end up having to pay back. So if you want to try it. That's up to you. If your bank will allow it, great. But as far as owner draw, my understanding is it's probably not acceptable. But talk to your CPA, your accountant, whoever's helping you file this. Talk to your bank, and let's see what they've got to say about it. All right. Question on here: Does the PPP pay for business expenses other than payroll? Correct. So we talked about being able to get this thing waived. So how you waive it, remember the actual amount you get is based off of your payroll 2.5 times, but you have 8 weeks to spend it. So that's more than 2.5 times of your monthly monthly payroll. So you have those 8 weeks to spend it. You have to spend at least 75% of that on your payroll, and then the rest can be spent on items like your rent, interest on a mortgage, interest on other loans that you may have, as well as utilities, health insurance, things like that. Now, when I say health insurance, we're talking about group health, not individual health. Unfortunately, there's no clear guidance on whether or not individual health is I guess Obamacare is actually covered or as actually a covered expense. But we know group health is. So again, you may end up with a little bit more money than in that loan than you meant to, which means you have to end up paying that back. So that's completely up to you on how that works out. If you do end up having to pay it back, it's 1%. The interest is 1%, and it's payable over 2 years. So it used to be when they first came out with this, it's going to be a lot higher interest rate with a lot longer payment term. They decided to drop that down to 2 years and 1% interest rate. One other key on this, though, is you don't have to make any payments on this until generally about 6 months after you take out the loan. So where are we on that? So that's a lot of facts on how it came out. So what's happening in reality? So you've got a lot of banks, about two that have already accepted applications. There's a lot of money that's already been given out or promised. It's about $250 billion have already been doled out to local businesses since the inception of this. That's been a little over 2 weeks now, about 2.5 weeks. That's quite a bit of money, but the problem might be is that there's only $350 billion essentially that's allocated for this entire program. That leaves $100 billion, which sounds like a lot of money, except you still have a lot of very large banks that have collected applications but haven't submitted a single one to the actual SBA for approval. Some of those banks include Bank of America, Chase, and there's a couple of other larger banks that haven't done it yet. Some of your smaller banks, they were able to process things within 3 or 4 days, and people are already getting funded. So I think it depends on how many applications they receive, their process, how much risk they're willing to take on pushing these through quickly. Apparently, Bank of America is not willing to take on a whole heck of a lot of risk. And ultimately, I think it's going to run out of money. And unless there's an infusion of cash that comes from the government, which they are trying to re-up, add another $250 billion to it. If they don't end up doing that, it's going to be out of money by the end of the week. So if you haven't already applied, you need to get on it now. Now, if you don't have a bank that's working with you, that was one of the issues a lot of people had, is maybe their bank wasn't willing to get in on this program, so they weren't offering this to their clients. Then you had to go find a bank that would. And unfortunately, most big banks and even some of the smaller banks were only offering this program to those clients they already had a lending and or banking relationship. So if you didn't already have a relationship with them, well, they weren't interested in working with you. But there are a couple of banks, and so I'll tell how, there's a lot of banks. The only one I know of right now is Amagi, that's done a pretty good job of allowing other people to get in. You do have to open up a checking account, but you don't have to have a pre-existing account with them to be able to access it. And they seem to be pretty quick. Their online portal is a little wonky, but it seemed to work out just great. If you knew the right questions to ask and you had your accountant on the phone. It wasn't too hard to apply for. So I'm speaking personally here. It wasn't too hard to apply for. I did it a little over a week ago, and 2 days ago I did get confirmation that I should have the money in my account within about 3 days. So I'm kind of excited about it now. I'd like to pay a couple of bills. That'd be great news. Looks like we got word here that Wood Forest is also accepting applications without a previous bank account. So if that's true, go check them out if you're having trouble locating somebody on that. So any questions on the Paycheck Protection Program? I know it went fast and very general. There's a way to wave your hand. You can unmute yourself and holler at me, or you can just type it in the deal here. And if I don't see something here in a couple seconds, I'll keep going.
Hey, Phil has a question. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey, so I've been trying to apply for the PPP loan, and I keep getting emails back and forth, and submit more information, submit information I've already submitted. I had also read somewhere, though, that it had said to apply with your local bank along with other banks. Is there anything you've heard on that?
I've actually heard don't do it.
Okay.
As far as applying to multiple banks, because what it could do is you could finally get some submitted over to the SBA. They're going to see a repeat on your tax ID, and they're going to kick them all out. Okay. So remember, we're on limited funds. I know for some people are just going to miss on it the first time, unfortunately. But if you've already got it that far, more than likely you're probably still going to get in. But as far as the forms go, it is kind of a pain in the rear end. You've got to have your 940s or your 941s ready to go. You need to have and I'm talking about my experience here. They want to see an accounting record of how much I paid for health insurance, how much I paid for other expenses. That way they can justify the amount that we're asking for. They also wanted an actual Excel spreadsheet or some kind of spreadsheet or form that showed how I derived the number, like specifically highlighted this number, make it easy to read. This is the number that we're asking for, and this is why. And really, it was a fairly easy process as long as I had all that stuff, all that information kind of ready to go. They haven't asked me for anything else, so I'm not sure. But I think every bank's a little bit different. The reason why they're a little bit different is there's not a whole lot of guidance or not a lot of clear guidance on exactly what's needed, how these banks are to underwrite it. So typically when a bank gives you a loan, they're responsible for that loan if they make a mistake. And that's what kind of initially happened. If they make a mistake and authorize a loan to somebody who really technically wasn't approved, then they would end up having to kind of eat that. They would end up getting the slap on the wrist from the SBA for approving wrong, I guess a wrongful loan. And so they would end up taking a lot of liability for that. And so that's one of the reasons why the rollout was as slow as it was. It was supposed to have been done weeks ago, or a little over a week ago for a lot of banks. It wasn't because they wanted clarity. They wanted assurances that if somebody snuck in and basically lied about their whole app, got approved for this, and it found out that it was a fraudulent deal, that the bank wasn't going to be dinged as hard because they didn't have near as much time to do the confirmation and the work that they're doing. But some banks feel like yours may be taking a little bit extreme, trying to limit that exposure as much as possible.
I was actually recommended to go through a company called Lendio. And so that's where I've been trying to submit everything.
Okay.
So instead of going through the actual bank itself, it's a company that helps process this.
Is that right? Okay. That I don't know. I'll write it down and I'll do a little research on it. Lendio, L-E-N?
Lendio.
Perfect. All right, Phil, I appreciate it. Somebody to ask about 1099. So I said with your PPP, you cannot count your 1099 contractors as far as payroll, but you can, as a 1099 contractor, apply for this loan. So you don't have direct payroll. You probably don't have a W-2 you pay yourself. There's a lot of sole proprietors. There's a lot of gig employees out there that really they don't have a true structure of business. It may be just their name. It may not be. They may be an HVAC company that just is them. They don't have anybody else working for them. Well, they qualify for this as well. And there's unfortunately, it's not as clear on exactly what you're going to need. That's going to be bank by bank, just like what we're talking about with Phil. Some banks want more information. Some banks want less. If you've already filed your 2019 taxes, since a lot of sole props, your profit is going to be listed right there on your taxes. That's your income. That's what they're going to base your actual loan amount. As long as you use that specifically for your own payroll, which is, it's not really truly payroll. It's your own self, I guess. Then you should be able to get that waived as well. So that's the 1099 side of that. So I encourage you, if you are a 1099 contractor, you're a gig employee, you're self-employed, just you can go to that PPP program and you can apply, and let's see what happens. I mean, there's other things apparently that are available to you, but I would definitely apply I'm looking at the date, as of the 10th, which was Friday. Enrollment to the PPP was open up to you guys. So absolutely get on there and let's actually see what happens. Another thing that I have talked about, so for your 1099s, before I get into the EIDL, is unemployment. So one of the neat things that's come through the CARES Act is that they've redefined, now this is temporary, they've redefined the definition of an employee that's eligible for unemployment. And that includes your sole proprietorships, your 1099 contractors. So maybe you don't qualify for the PPP for whatever reason. You don't have the right books. You don't have the right records. It's just a pain in the rear for you. You don't have an accountant to help you. Maybe filing for unemployment during this time may be the best option for you as well, because they've relaxed that. Like I said, they've relaxed the definition of employee to also include those contractors, those 1099 contractors, those business owners that have no other employees. So, all right. The EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disability Loan, that is the one that you've heard of. A lot of people have heard of the $10,000 grant, the mysterious $10,000 grant that you can get for applying for this loan through the SBA. Now, this came out before the PPP, the actual Paycheck Protection Program. The EIDL was the first line of defense that rolled out for us business owners for actually getting a true SBA disaster loan. This is the first time the economic injury part has been put on here, which it's kind of a unique situation. I think they put a bunch of carts before the little bitty horse, because as far as I understand, there's not a single person on the face of this earth that's actually qualified or actually been approved for this loan that I have found, and I have talked to a lot of people. So theoretically, what's supposed to happen is you apply for this loan. It's a 3-page application, but it's a short, quick application. It doesn't take you more than 5 minutes for most people. And when you get to the very end, you got a little box to check. When you check that box, it says, do you want an advance on your SBA loan, your EIDL loan, or your EIDL, because L means loan. When you click yes, it says, hey, within 3 days, you're going to get $10,000 from the government. That has proven to not be true. So what was supposed to look like is you get that $10,000 loan, and you get that EIDL loan application completed within 3 days. You get that $10,000 advance, whether or not you have been fully approved for that loan. Now, they still have to prove that you are an existing business. And there's confusion on whether or not they meant that it was 3 days after you were approved for the loan you would get the money. The website doesn't say that. It's three days after you apply for the loan that you would receive that money straight into your bank account. It just hasn't turned into reality. I don't know a single person, like I said, who's actually received that grant, because that advance on that loan, that $10,000 advance, becomes a grant that you also do not have to pay back. There's also been some confusion that's come out. There was one website from a state SBA, and John Stacy just put that on there. You said it's $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. I don't know that that's true either, because there was one spot that pointed on one regional SBA website. I think it was Michigan, maybe. I got to go back and look. So the state that starts with an M. They posted that and then pulled it down within a few hours. So I don't know if it's somebody jumped the gun on reporting it, or somebody totally made something up, but there has been no confirmation that I have found that is $1,000 per employee. The website says up to $10,000, and then everything else says you'll receive your $10,000. So there's so much conflicting information, regardless of what it is, whether it's 6, 10, 1,000. Nobody's gotten it yet, even though it said 3 days. So I'm keeping an eye out on it to figure out what's going on with it. My expectation is that program's probably going to go defunct. I think they underfunded it and completely underfunded it, and then they underestimated the response. And that's probably what it is. There's just not enough money that's been allocated for that grant to actually come into existence. However, I expect the loan at some point to actually come through, and if that's the case, then fantastic, grand and glorious. Let's take advantage of of up to a 30-year loan that's going to have less than 4% interest. So I know some of us would be happy to have that for our homes. So that's really the quick and dirty on a lot of this. There's so much information out there. There's so much misinformation out there. I'm trying to stay on it as best I can. But if you have questions, you have comments, you have concerns, you want to speak to me directly, you do have my email address right there that Andy put up. I'll put it in the chat as well. I'll also put my my office number here. You're more than welcome to call me. I'd love to chat with you. I've had plenty of customers that have cried over the phone. I have plenty of customers say some really inappropriate words that are usually considered four-letter just because of their whole situation. And you know, I'm here to listen. I'm here to help in any way I can. I want to make sure our community is taken care of, and this is hopefully just a little way that I can do that.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Great information. So great. So, well, I'm going to finish up the meeting today, and I'm actually going to talk about a little bit about a case study. And this is actually stuff that we can do right now. We have a lot of extra time on our hands. Nobody's going to dispute that. And it's an opportunity to kind of go in there, kind of sharpen the saw, kind of retool and get some things going with maybe some marketing. So I'm going to focus my piece here on marketing. So there's a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. It's written by Robert Cialdini. Out of probably the 70, 80 books that I've read on marketing and advertising, this is by far my favorite book. And by many people, this is considered kind of the foundation of all marketing. And the reason why is everything in this book is based on research and case study. And Robert Cialdini goes into quite a bit of detail of why consumers buy, the reasons they buy, and what motivates them to buy. So we're going to talk about one of those case studies out of his book. And this is a picture of a bunch of Korean POW, American soldiers that were released out of a Chinese prison camp. And during the Korean War, a lot of the American soldiers that were captured were kept in Chinese prison camps. And after the war occurred, they were having all sorts of problems with so many of these American soldiers coming back being communists, and they couldn't figure out why until they started to do the research on it. And they found out that when an American soldier got captured, the first thing that the Chinese did is they sat him down and they got him to admit just one thing that was good about communism. And usually it was, hey, everybody has a job. And then they would have essay contests. They would have competitions that would all be about how you could say good things about communism. And over the process of doing this for 2, 3, 4 years, so many of our American soldiers came back and essentially they were brainwashed that they would essentially drip on the American soldier. And it's interesting because what you had is you had a situation where the captor ended up adopting their captive's ideology. And it seems odd, but that's essentially what happened. The takeaway to this is that as we're consistent with our marketing message, it leads to a certain amount of competency. And I talk a lot about this when I do seminars, that competency equates to being viewed as the expert in your industry. You don't have to be necessarily good at what you do. It's a good thing to do that, but if you can have marketing that consistently goes out there and lets the consumer know that you're in business, hey, we're here, we're doing this is what we're doing, that leads to being viewed as being competent and of course being viewed as an expert. So one of those tools that is phenomenal to use, especially these days, is a CRM, a customer's relationship management. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The bottom line is there's not enough willpower, brain power, hours in the day to always remember to reach out to your customers, even prospects, on a consistent basis. Once you get beyond like 50, 60 people that are kind of in your list, you just can't remember it. It's too much. So, but the problem becomes a lot of times we're doing it the wrong way when we market or when we use a CRM in specific. So there's this concept of doing it the old way versus the new way. And I'm going to actually highlight the old way, which happens to be the wrong way, and use me and my wife as an example. And this is our engagement picture here. And I can tell you right now that when I first met her, it was love at first sight, because I was sitting in my car with a set of binoculars looking into her bedroom window, and I knew right then and there I was going to marry her. But I was a little nervous. I was a little scared. I didn't want to approach her right away. So I started to do research. So I would follow her while she was out and about with a friend or on a date with someone else, because I wanted to see the type of things she'd like to talk about. Then at night, I would go through her trash and I would jump in the dumpster and I'd start picking through it, and I'd try to figure out what type of things that she liked to eat. So when I asked her out, I could take her to the right restaurant. And I would do all this research, and I would take all this research and I'd make notes of it. The reality, I was being a stalker, but I would take this research and I would put it into my CRM. Now, that didn't really happen. So, I didn't really stalk my wife. But the point I'm making to this is that back in the 80s and the 90s, that's kind of how we approached our CRMs. And if you remember back then, we would try to find out about our customer's daughter who had a ballerina recital, which today you do not want to ask anything from any person about their kids because of the crazy stuff that we see going on. You don't really want to have too much information about your customers, but what you want to have, of course, is automation. And that's what I want to get to. This is probably the most profound way that you can use a CRM. My company, and I'm not trying to do a commercial here, but I have a company, Pinpoint Marketing. We've been doing CRMs and setting them up for customers for 10 years. And the most powerful thing that you can do to stay in contact with your customers on a consistent basis is to put them into a CRM and then put together an automation. And this is an automation that goes for a complete year, and it's all task driven. A lot of these tasks automatically go on their own. You don't have to sit in there and actually do everything. But this is a realtor touch campaign. This is actually done for a company called Flooring Nerd. A lot of you guys know John Lansbaum. But the first thing that happens is when he takes a realtor that he's met, he puts their first name, last name, email, address, and phone number. And that's it. That's all the information he's after. And then he puts them into the system, and then he attaches this automation to that person, that realtor, and then this is what takes place. So the first day, they're added to MailChimp, and they automatically have an email campaign that automatically starts, that takes place, that goes on in the background where he doesn't have to do anything. This whole email campaign is built out for an entire year or even longer, and they receive a weekly email. Then the next thing that takes place is he sends out he mails out a thank you. And a lot of you guys that know Lori that's on the call with us, she does send out cards, and she does a great, great job with that. And that's one of the great options that's out there. Then 2 days later, he follows up with a phone call. Then 7 days later, he has a newsletter go out. And then 30 days, another phone call. 37 days, mails out newsletter. Now think about what's taking place and what's happening here. If you have 100 people, if you have 200 people in your CRM and they're assigned to this particular automation, they don't generally come in all at the same time. They come in at different times. So what's neat about this is when you attach this automation, and it's just one click, 2 clicks with, also sending them over to MailChimp. You don't have to re-enter the information. You just click on a little button that takes you over to MailChimp. All of this is automatic, and it's to that particular person. If I enter in Lisa today, it's going to start right here. But then if I get a hold of Jim, who's another realtor, 2 weeks later, I enter it in, it's going to start him at the same place that Lisa started, though they're going to be staggered, if that makes sense. That's really powerful when you have some sort of a narrative and you want to take people along as far as understanding what it is that you do and how you do it and how you do it well. So this is a very, very, very powerful piece. It is quintessentially the tool that every business should have, whether you're you're a restaurant, whether you're selling insurance, in whatever your line of field is, this is the tool that you should have. Consistency of our marketing messages leads to competency, and it helps us being viewed as the expert. And then, additionally, once we have that going on, there are reports, there are things that take place that essentially it can give us what we refer to as the 30,000 view of your business and how it's doing. So my offer today on this is I've had a couple people actually express interest. It takes a little bit of time and effort to actually set up a CRM. But right now, what I'm doing through the Small Business Phoenix Rising project is if any of you express interest, we'll go ahead and we'll designate a time. We will go in and I will go through everything that needs to take place on setting up a CRM and walk you through that process, which is absolutely valuable. We charge thousands of dollars to do this work. We've made a commitment, Pinpoint Marketing is my company, that we're not charging customers right now. We just want to make sure that everybody is being taken care of. So if that is something you're interested, just reach out to me. You can contact me at this very long email. It's andy@pinpointmarketingsolutions.com. Reach out to me there, or you can reach me through the emails that I send out through Small Business Phoenix Rising. Let me know. We'll decide on a time. We're thinking about doing a time next week, and we'll spend a couple hours because it's going to take some time, but I will show you how to do that. One of the biggest problems with CRMs and getting them set up properly within the business is it's absolutely and completely overwhelming. And it truly is, because they're 90% of what is in a CRM, you're never even going to use, and you shouldn't use unless you are a company that is completely online and you never talk to the humans and everything is done through a process of going back and forth with emails. There's a lot there to use. But if you deal with people face to face or you talk to them on the phone, most of the features on there, you're probably not going to use. Okay. Any questions on that? Let's see here. All right. Nope, we don't have any. So please reach out to me if we're going to have this CRM training be sometime next week, but please reach out if you want to be a part of that. Adam, did you just raise your hand or are you just scratching your head?
Both. I actually have something to say real quick. John Stacy pointed out to me, and some of you guys may have received the email. This talks about the fluidity of all of this. Apparently a few hours ago, the EIDL, just like John had said, was defined as limited to $1,000 per employee to now we're talking about the grant. So $1,000 per employee to a max of $10,000. Now, again, there's no confirmation on when that money is going to show up, but that was what they had emailed, and he got the email, but I didn't get the email. So, but he was kind enough to forward that over to me. Just FYI, the exact wording to ensure that the greatest number of applicants can receive assistance during this challenging time. The amount of your advance will be determined by the number of your pre-disaster January 31, 2020 employees. The advance will be $1,000 per employee to a maximum of $10,000. So apparently it has been qualified. So yeah, these things change within a few minutes. So my apologies for not having that part right. Even the website for SBA.gov doesn't have that information yet.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. Any other questions, any other thoughts? Because we can bring this kind of to a close. After each of these meetings I download, we actually record it. Then I take them on YouTube. I'll send out an email with this recording if there's some information there that you didn't quite get and you want to go through and listen to the whole thing. Also too, we're really trying to get the word out here to other business owners. So if you know of other business owners, please refer us to this. We have these meetings every Tuesdays and Thursday, and we've actually been able to really grow this group. Originally, when we started this, we only had about 4 or 5 people, and we are consistently getting anywhere from 25 to 30 people on each one of these Zoom meetings. So please spread the word. Please let those that you know that are in business that there are options, that there is hope, and that at one point or another, we're going to get this behind us and life's going to go back to normal. And we're all going to each be able to go out to dinner, to a movie, and have fun again. So it'll all be good. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the info.